Mexico has built a new kind of prison cell made only for cartel leaders. The facility is designed to break them completely. Officials describe the goal as the erasure of identity, hope, and sanity. This is not a general prison wing. It is a structure created to contain cartel bosses alone and show the state's strength after years of humiliations. The decision came after humiliations that scarred Mexico's reputation. For decades, prisons had failed to contain the most powerful cartel leaders. They had escaped through tunnels, bribed guards, and turned entire facilities into bases of operation. Each failure was a message that the state had no control. Each scandal forced officials to search for a new response. The most shocking moment came on July 11, 2015. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman disappeared from a maximum security cell. A hole in the shower floor led to a tunnel more than a mile long. The tunnel had lighting, ventilation, and even a motorcycle on rails. It emerged in a purpose-built house near the prison. Cameras captured the moment guards opened the cell door to find it empty. Mexico's most wanted man was already gone. This was not his first escape. In 2001, he had hidden in a laundry cart and rolled out of another prison. Both escapes made Mexico look powerless. The 2015 tunnel was broadcast around the world, drawing international outrage. American officials expressed disbelief. Mexico's president faced the public with no explanation other than failure. The message spread fast. If the state could not hold El Chapo, it could not hold anyone. At the same time, Mexican prisons became notorious for corruption. Cartel leaders inside lived with luxury. They had cell phones, televisions, and women smuggled in by guards. They ordered meals, threw parties, and continued running their organizations from behind bars. For many, prison was safer than life outside. Guards took orders from bosses. Other inmates served them like employees. Reports showed how far it had gone. Photos surfaced of drug lords posing with expensive watches, stacks of cash, and designer clothes from inside their cells. Music videos were filmed from behind prison walls. Inmates held meetings and directed drug shipments. Assassinations were planned and ordered from inside. Prisons became cartel headquarters disguised as punishment facilities. This reality sent a clear signal across the country. Crime did not end in prison. In some cases, it became easier. Young recruits saw prison not as a consequence, but as protection. Even captured, bosses lived with impunity. Mexico's institutions looked weaker with each new revelation. The United States increased pressure. In 2024, the Department of Justice indicted 28 members of the Sinaloa cartel. The announcement described them as the most violent fentanyl traffickers in the world. The indictments detailed an international network stretching from Chinese chemical suppliers to Guatemalan brokers to Mexican labs. The network was linked to more than 70,000 American deaths each year from fentanyl overdoses. For Mexico, this was another blow. Once again, it was the United States leading the fight against criminals based on Mexican soil. The world saw Mexico as unable to contain its own cartels. The humiliation was complete. The response was to create a new kind of prison wing. The design was not meant for rehabilitation. It was not meant for normal punishment. Every detail was aimed at psychological destruction. Officials said openly that these cells were built to break cartel leaders. The concrete tomb is small, windowless, and stripped of comfort. The walls close in around the prisoner with no natural light to mark day or night. Fluorescent bulbs stay on without pause, burning into eyes and erasing all sense of time. The bed is only a concrete slab. There is no mattress, no pillow, no blanket. Sanitation is reduced to a slot in the floor. There is no furniture, no privacy, no dignity. Guards do not speak to prisoners. All communication comes through loudspeakers with mechanical voices. There are no visits, no phone calls, and no contact with other inmates. Reports describe the effects. Prisoners pace in circles for hours, repeating the names of family members. Some bang their heads against walls. Others mutter conversations with people who are not there. A lieutenant who once controlled an army now spends his days speaking to voices only he can hear. The conditions push men into madness. Authorities studied solitary confinement before building the cells. They knew extended isolation causes paranoia, hallucinations, and breakdowns. International human rights groups describe such confinement as torture. Mexico describes it as justice. Officials confirm that the intention is to strip away power by stripping away the mind. The design of Mexico's new prison wing is not random. Every detail has been chosen for one goal: psychological destruction. Officials studied decades of research into solitary confinement. The evidence showed that extended isolation leads to hallucinations, paranoia, and collapse of identity. Mexican authorities took those findings and built a facility around them. The goal was not physical punishment, it was a mental collapse. Inside, prisoners are cut off from all normal human contact. Guards are forbidden to speak. No visits are allowed. No phone calls reach the outside world. Communication comes only through loudspeakers, a metallic voice stripped of tone. The prisoner becomes invisible. They lose not only freedom, but the basic recognition of being a human being. Time itself disappears. Fluorescent bulbs stay on day and night, never dimming. There is no sunrise, no sunset, no rhythm of hours to hold on to. The body's natural clock unravels. Sleep becomes fragmented. Dreams blend with waking visions. The mind begins to slide between reality and illusion until both feel the same. The conditions create the exact breakdown that authorities sought. Men once feared as leaders of armies lose track of who they are. They speak to shadows on the wall. They whisper to family members who are not present. Some laugh, then cry, then scream within minutes. Guards describe watching men pace in perfect circles for hours, repeating names over and over until the words have no meaning. Officials explain these tactics openly. They say cartel leaders cannot be allowed to run their empires from behind bars. They cite the deaths caused by fentanyl trafficking. More than 70,000 Americans die each year from overdoses. They cite torture chambers found across Mexico, filled with bones by the kilogram. They describe families ripped apart by kidnappings and executions. In their view, psychological warfare is justified. The state is turning the same terror once used by cartels back against them. But Mexico is targeting men who built their power through brutality. The reaction is already raising fears of escalation. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, is one of the most violent organizations in modern history. Its enforcers film themselves torturing rivals for hours, keeping them alive to prolong suffering. Videos circulated of men begging for water after their skin was cut away, while their captors laughed. These crimes were not hidden. They were messages. Los Zetas had their own methods. Their leader, Miguel Trevino Morales, known as Z40, used steel drums filled with gasoline to burn victims alive. Families were forced to watch as loved ones were killed one by one. Even children were not spared. The screams and flames became tools of control. Communities submitted because they were too terrified to resist. The Sinaloa cartel, often described as more businesslike, has also been accused of gruesome methods. The faction led by El Chapo's sons, known as Los Chapitos, has been linked to torture with corkscrews, electric shocks to sensitive areas, and victims forced to eat chilies before being killed. Some were fed to animals, a spectacle designed to instill fear beyond death. These are the organizations Mexico is now confronting with psychological destruction. Authorities hope isolation will prevent them from running their cartels. But history shows these groups never respond quietly. Their culture is built on retaliation. When insulted, they strike back. When cornered, they escalate. That is the risk behind the new prison strategy. Every cartel faction understands humiliation as an attack on its survival. The problem is not only direct retaliation, it is what happens inside the cartels themselves. Leaders cut off from communication cannot control their networks. Orders stop. Disputes go unresolved. Mid-level commanders begin to make decisions on their own. Ambitious lieutenants see opportunities to seize control. Fragmentation begins. Fragmented cartels are unpredictable. Older bosses, however brutal, often balanced violence with strategy. They understood that attention could bring government crackdowns. They avoided unnecessary massacres when business was at stake. But younger commanders grow up in a world shaped by torture videos and social media. For them, brutality is reputation. To gain power, they must prove they are more ruthless than the last man. This cycle breeds splinter groups. New organizations form, often with no established territory or business model. To gain recognition, they turn to acts of terror. Civilian massacres, public executions, and kidnappings become calling cards. Violence is no longer a tool of profit, but a tool of identity. Each new group competes to show it is the most feared. Examples already exist. When leaders of Los Zetas were captured or killed, the organization broke into multiple factions. Violence multiplied as each group fought for dominance. Communities that once feared a single cartel suddenly faced 5. The brutality became worse than before. Mexico's new prison policy risks repeating this outcome, but across all major cartels at once. The human cost is already visible. In early leaks, cartel operatives vowed to strike prison guards and their families. The message was clear. Working inside the psychological prison makes someone a target. Attacks on civilians have also begun to surface. Innocent towns face executions intended as warnings. Each act of retaliation spreads fear far beyond the prison walls. The United States is also part of this story. Fentanyl deaths are used as justification for Mexico's harsh new measures. Washington has pressured Mexico repeatedly, indicting cartel members and sanctioning chemical suppliers abroad. The American government presents the new prison wing as proof that Mexico is finally taking action. But human rights organizations see something else. They call the facility torture. They warn that stripping men of sanity crosses a line that democracies should not cross. Criticism is growing worldwide. European groups condemn the conditions. China, named as a source of fentanyl precursors, has issued statements calling for proportionate responses. Former cartel members turned informants warn that the strategy is dangerous. One explained that destroying a leader's mind does not destroy the cartel. It creates dozens of lieutenants who fight to replace him. Each one uses violence as proof of his right to lead. The consequences could spread far beyond Mexico. As cartels fracture, their methods evolve. Violence becomes more extreme to gain attention. Recruitment grows easier for young men drawn to the image of power built on terror. Entire regions risk descending into chaos as competing factions attack civilians, police, and officials. The threat is not limited to Mexico. These networks operate across borders. Their methods can spread with them. The war against cartels has always been brutal, but Mexico's new prison wing marks a turning point. The state has embraced psychological warfare, deliberately using methods described as torture by international law. The justification is fentanyl deaths, cartel atrocities, and years of humiliation. The aim is to prove control, but the result may be a more unstable and violent criminal landscape. The cost is measured not only in cartel leaders broken inside cells, but in communities torn apart outside them. Families live with the fear of sudden massacres. Children face the possibility of being taken as hostages. Entire towns prepare for violence, sparked by decisions made far away in government offices. The prison wing is designed to break men in silence. The response may be heard in gunfire on city streets. International observers warn that this approach could become a model. Other countries facing powerful gangs may see Mexico's prison as an example to copy. If that happens, psychological torture could spread as a state tactic against organized crime. At the same time, cartels may adopt even more extreme retaliation methods, creating a cycle of violence without limits. Mexico's strategy shows how far the conflict has escalated. From tunnels under prisons to concrete tombs, from escapes to isolation, the battle is shifting into a darker phase. The cartels are not defeated. They are adapting. The future may hold not fewer deaths, but more, and the line between justice and cruelty may already be gone.